Another week of the college football season is done. We've learned quite a bit through the first 3 weeks of the college football season from the NFL perspective, for the draft, and from just a college perspective. If you're talking Heisman, if you're talking conference championships, playoffs, etc., we've learned a lot, Matty Kiwoom. One of those things, and I'll start here on the Draft Ranking Show this week with Cody Carpentier and Matty Kiwoom. Subscribe, click that like button, everything, everywhere, podcast, and YouTube. One thing 30 days ago, if I would have told you Arch Manning is very far away from being good, not really very far, but like pretty far, and Carson Beck should be in the top 3 tiers of the Heisman race and is undefeated and just ripping the foot. Like, let me phrase it this way. Freaky Friday happened with Carson Beck and Arch Manning.
Yeah, something like that, right? Something like that. I can't believe it. Like you said, a month ago, Arch was the second coming of Andrew Luck. That's actually what I called him. That's what he appeared to me in the limited snaps that he got. And now Carson Beck looks like the polished passer, the NFL-ready guy that we thought he was going to look like last year at Georgia. Took him another year. But sometimes I think it just takes these quarterbacks. I think we're in the age of maturation for quarterbacks because we're seeing at the NFL level. We're seeing the younger guys struggle and the guys who had the experience, the guys that had the snaps, the guys that transferred, the guys that played for a number of head coaches and a number of coordinators in college having a little bit more sound success in the NFL. It just seems like this is the golden age of letting your quarterback marinate for, more than just 3 games.
It's kind of bizarre. So if you look at Carson Beck the last 3 weeks, his passer rating has increased from 141 against Notre Dame to 212 against Bethel Cookman, and then 205 against USF this week. They won 49-12 against the South Florida Bulls that have been kind of the Cinderella of the early part of the year. Beck throws for 340 yards, 3 touchdowns. He does have 2 picks, but he's 82% completion percentage after coming off a 91% completion percentage like before. He had a rushing touchdown. On the Arch Manning front, he started the game well. Well is in like Texas was up 7-0. It wasn't playing that great. The first quarter, he ended up, he was 3 for 4, 54 passing yards. He had 2 carries and a rushing touchdown. His passer rating was 188.4 at the end of the first quarter. At that point, Texas was 0 for 3 on third downs against UTEP yesterday. At the end of the second quarter, Matty, he went from, again, 3 for 4 to start the game, passing, to 5 for 16. The second quarter yesterday for Arch Manning had 10 consecutive incompletions. And it was a bad second quarter. He was 2 for 12 for 15 yards in the second quarter. He had 3 carries, 14 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown again. So he had 2 rushing touchdowns in the first half, which if you're talking from a fantasy perspective, he saved himself because he had 2 rushing touchdowns. But from an overall quarterback perspective and growth perspective, if you ever want to go back and see where Arch Manning is, you go back and you watch against UTEP and you watch that second quarter. And that is just the definition of, one, why are you pressing so hard? Why are you not just allowing your offensive line to block for you, which they did a very good job of yesterday? Run blocking is a different question for that offensive line. But from a pass pro perspective, they gave him time to do a lot. And a lot of the times he's rolling around, moves right, rolls left, goes against the grain, had time, moved like he was. It's kind of hard to explain. Is like he navigated almost every quadrant of the pocket of behind the line of scrimmage yesterday on multiple given plays, right? He rolled all the way right to the sideline. He's rolled all the way left to the sideline. He's been deep. He's been short, 3-step, 7-step, everything. He had every opportunity to make every throw yesterday, but he still forced himself into these situations where his chest is facing the sideline and he's throwing back across the middle, where his feet are in the, like, one foot's in the air and he's throwing off platform. And none of it really makes sense. There's a couple of opportunities where you're like, all right, yes, you should have forced that. Yes, it's like 3rd and 6, and yes, we got to get that ball back to the tight end. But again, even when he does that and the ball is on the spot, it's a 97-mile-an-hour fastball.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest problems that I'm noticing with Arch is the fact that he hasn't been one of the quarterbacks that's grown through the season. He's the same quarterback we saw against Ohio State, and we all wrote it off as it was, man, this might be a mirage. Everyone
Mhm.
that's not like anti-Texas wrote it off as like, this might be a mirage. Like all the draft analysts were like, all right, it happens. It's Ohio State. That's a tough spot to be in your first road start. And you're seeing Sam Leavitt at Arizona State grow yesterday. Again, competition level was down. Texas State's fine. But you're seeing these quarterbacks grow. You're seeing Bo Prabula grow. Underwood's growing at Michigan exponentially.
Yep.
I know they, again, played Central Michigan yesterday. Ty Simpson, in just a matter of 3 weeks since that Florida State game, is grown miles. I mean, you talk yesterday, one of the most impressive players I saw yesterday was Ty Simpson. Again, I don't think he's had 6 incompletions in the last 2 weeks. And it's something that Arch hasn't been able to do, is just grow. And they're 2/3 of the way through a very easy start to the season after the Ohio State game. They got Sam Houston next week and then a bye before Florida. We talk about Florida if you want with Lagway. But the problem is, and I don't even really know where to go with it because there's nothing you can do about it. The play calling can improve, sure. But the decision making from Arch Manning is at not even baseline right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's a massive problem for a quarterback that's, heading up Texas, who's a super young team, young talent around him. He had no DeAndre Moore yesterday, who was held out with concussion protocol. All sophomores and freshmen running routes for him. And outside of Jack Endries, the tight end. Banged up running backs. So we had freshmen and sophomores carrying the football. Rather young offensive line outside of the right guard and the center. And his decision-making needed to be what elevated a team like this to a very easy, lofty win. And instead it was 14-3 at halftime. It was 7-0 at the end of the first quarter. And I wasn't even sure if they were going to get to 20. And they got 27-10. And Arch Manning, I think, has been the biggest, I guess, thing I've learned this year is just, man, this guy is not even close to being. I mean, again, this could click. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. It could click by Florida for sure. Goes out against Sam Houston. The decisions are there. Sark shows him everything on film. Boom. But he feels like he's really far away mentally.
And that was, to me, the biggest, I wouldn't say concern, but maybe it is a concern at this point because I thought that the mental part of the game was a lock because of who he was, who he could confide in, who he could learn from, the close knit between him, his coach, and his coach to his family. Like, I just thought that the mental part of it, I thought from the shoulders up was the thing we didn't have to worry about with a guy like Arch. That's why after that first week, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Even after that second week, I was like, yeah, but the stats were there. And now we're just looking at a guy who has 3 straight games of interceptions. So he hasn't he hasn't pitched a clean slate at all. And now who's really just kind of looking like a guy who's bringing up those questions that we had coming out of college. Because he didn't play the highest level of high school football, correct? Like he wasn't playing surrounded by the blue chippers, the 5 stars, like the 6A, whatever it is down there that it's called. I'm from Mass. We only have like 2 divisions. I don't really, know a whole lot about them there, but it's starting to look like, man, he's resorting to his athleticism to run the ball. He's trying to resort to his athleticism when it comes to throwing the ball. You talked about the off-platform throws, trying to make things happen out of nowhere, making bad decisions. Instead of just staying within the framework of his fundamentals, he's completely let him go awry. And at this point, 3 games in, I think it's time to go back to the drawing board. It's time to talk to the positional coach if he has a throwing coach, a trainer, whatever, and really just start to build it back up from scratch because what he needs to do is go out there and not try to hit a grand slam. He needs to get a couple bunt singles, get on base, just start seeing the ball better, start making a little bit better contact, instead of just going out there just trying to swing for the fences. But I wanted to ask you this because
I think
you
that's
kind
a
of touched
phenomenal
upon it.
analogy, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I'm a baseball guy at heart. I love
But
baseball. I love baseball.
Seriously, that's his. And I don't want to cut you off. I want you to keep
No,
going.
it's fine.
That's his biggest thing. Is like he
Yeah.
can't even. I think they tried to work some of those crossers in and stuff, and a lot of Sark's offense is players crossing each other, and it's just I don't know if he's late, if he's just not mentally prepared to go to like the number 2 option, what it is, but it's he like you said, just got to get on base. I think that's a great place he needs to look. Start against Sam Houston.
But what the problem is kind of what you alluded to earlier in the show was that they're already almost through the time frame of the schedule where they should have been doing these things. They're already getting ready to ramp it back up. They got one more kind of call it a soft matchup next week, but then it's we're off to the races. They have the bye week and then it's SEC time, baby. It's time to go get. And I don't care how bad Florida's playing. I don't care how bad some of these SEC teams have performed. When the SEC lights are on, these teams are going to, turn it up a notch and the game will get faster. So they really have, at this point, 2 weeks to just get him back to square one. And I would love to see a game in which he throws the ball 12 times next week. It's just 12 for 12. And it's easy throws. And it's just, let's just beat up. But the question I have for you is, do they have the players around him to allow them to dial it down? Or does he have to be Josh Allen because he's playing with those type of weapons at this point in the season?
Well, if you're asking it from that perspective, he doesn't, I mean, he could, they don't have to throw the ball once against Sam Houston State to win that game.
That's right.
They can run the ball. Yesterday, Texas ran the ball 56 times. Let me look here. 55 times for 227 yards on the ground. And their two leading carriers were James Simon and Jarrett Gibson. James Simon's a true freshman. He had 17 carries, and Jarrett Gibson's a true sophomore who had 18 carries. Not great, both sub 4 yards per carry, but they can do that against Sam Houston, and they can win that game. I think conservatively, if you told me, all right, Texas can't throw the football, what's the score going to be? What's going to happen? They're going to run the ball 72 times, and they're going to win that game 28-0.
That's exactly what I had.
And that'll happen. Yeah. But here's the deal. You go back a year ago, and this is the most bewildering thing of the whole Arch Manning conversation is a year ago, we saw this guy play games against competition, right? Now you're talking about last week with San Jose State, right? He jumps up from 56 to 63% from Ohio State to San Jose State, almost 300 yards in the air. He has the 6-minute spill where it's 3 touchdowns. He rushes a touchdown. He has 5. You're like, holy shit, we got him back. He took a step forward. This is big. And then the UTEP game completely shits the bed in the second quarter, which is the opposite of what he did a week ago. You look at the game last year against UTSA, where he came in 9 for 12. Again, he come off the bench in the middle of that game. 9 for 12, 223, 4 touchdowns, no picks. 9 for 12, 223, 4 touchdowns, no picks. You saw that last year. That's the toughest thing about this whole conversation.
Right.
But then that next week, ULM 15 for 29, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. So it's like he can get, and then he come right back the next week, 84% completion percentage, 325 yards against Mississippi State. So it's very push-pull. You know what's in there, both ends, and both ends are very special. The top end, people always just connect to a little bit better. They're like, Heisman Trophy, number 1 overall pick. Yeah. The bottom end is like Jamarcus Russell. You're not even, but it's not even a joke, dude.
Like, let me ask you this though.
You have to 44% completion percentage against UTEP.
A 26.5 QBR.
Again, some of the notes I had in this game, and I tracked Texas a little bit closer because I write about them and stuff, and I do a podcast about them. I'm not a fan. I just cover them. And Arch, he had opportunities in this game. Again, he targeted like Ryan Wingo like 4 times in the first half, could not connect with him. This has been like an ongoing thing all year. I think Ryan Wingo has like 14 or 15 targets that are borderline uncatchable from Arch Manning. And people are starting to, Ryan Wingo might suck. Ryan Wingo's not good. No, Arch can't hit him. It infiltrated into Parker Livingston this week, who has a touchdown each of the first 2 games, number 13. He had him on a deep crosser, and Livingston had 2-3 steps on his defender. And this is one of those balls where you see it on the TV, and it's like, all right, you see the word Texas in the end zone, and the receiver's coming across right to left. Put that ball on the tee, leaning towards like the back pylon, and this is like a 45-yard pass. Put it on the tee, Livingston runs under it, touchdown. He runs up the tunnel type of deal, right? You've
Mhm.
seen it 100,000 times in your life. Instead, Arch puts this ball closer to the front pylon, like to the left of the tee, and misses him by like 5 yards. And you're like, that is a barely competent quarterback with pocket
Right.
awareness and space makes that throw 90% of the time. He couldn't make that throw.
What are his practices looking like? I mean, being part of the Orange Bloods team, I'm sure you get some reports of his day to day. Like, what are the reports coming out of Texas camp
They've
like
never been bad.
during the week?
They've never been
So,
bad.
so when the lights is on, it's a performance issue. It's a little
Well,
bit of stage fright or something.
I don't know if I see that was my problem coming out of Ohio State. I kind of assumed that. But I think what it is, it's like, does he have the yips? Is he pressing too hard? Like Steve Sarkisian talked about it, and I know we've talked about Texas here for 15 minutes. We'll move on in a minute. But it's a big thing, right? We'll move on to
Yeah, I mean,
Carson Beck and some of these
we're
other
talking
things.
about things that we thought we knew versus what we know after 3 weeks. This is top of the list.
This is top of the list. And Steve Sarkisian said last week that he was asked about Colin Simmons, who didn't register a stat in this game, who's the superstar edge rusher, and then Ryan Wingo. And he's like, yeah, I mean, I think they're pressing. Well, the dude that's pressing the hardest on the team right now is 16.
Yeah.
16's pressing harder than anybody. And he's very good in media. Like, he's obviously got a little bit of media training being a Manning.
Yeah.
So he's very good at going to the mic and going like, I need to be better. I can't play like that. I know I need to be better. Like, he knows that, while simultaneously being like rarely on social media, he says, and like acknowledging that like he did, like, the outside noise doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
If the outside noise didn't matter, Maddie, I think he'd be playing really good football right now. I think the outside noise matters. I think signing the Red Bull deal, the Vori deal, all these deals, and having the hype, I think he knew he had the hype. I don't think it's a situation where he didn't know, or he didn't realize the seat he was sitting in, which can be a good and bad thing. And I thought this was just the Ohio State stuff. I thought Ohio State just, the defensive backfield was just so disgusting for Ohio State. I thought that had him kind of, choked up in that game. And it was like, oh, San Jose State, he opened up a little bit more. UTEP, we're going to see this guy go nuclear. 4 touchdowns again, 300 yards. This is easy work. And then we're going to be, off to Sam Houston, and he's going to be just fine. Mm-hmm. This is a massive. People might don't overreact. I'm like, but it's UTEP, dude.
Right.
UTEP thought that UTEP in the middle of this game thought that this was a game. That's a problem. And it weighs entirely on his shoulders, and it can be fixed. But again, it's mental. And I think it's something where this is going to be Steve Sarkisian's biggest coaching job of his career, in the aspect of getting Arch right. And how do you get Arch right? I think, like you said before, hit singles, get on base, just start against Sam Houston with a phenomenal 15-play script to open that game. And it's got to be boom, 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 boom. And you look up, and it's like the Ty Simpson stuff. 9 for 9 to start the game, 116 yards. And Arch, it could be, I don't care. If it's 9 for 9 for 27 yards, I don't care. Completions, get in a rhythm, get in a flow, run the football. And then if you want to start pushing it, start pushing it. But it's a big problem right now. And, Maddie, who I don't think is having a big problem right now, I don't think Garrett Nussmeier's having a problem. I don't think, Joey Aguilar lost yesterday. Joey Aguilar's not having a problem.
That wasn't his fault, though. His kicker's got to hit 43-yarder. Actually, it starts with the false start. That false. So we're not going to go into that. But Joey Aguilar looked phenomenal yesterday.
Joey Aguilar not having a problem right now. These are the quarterbacks I wrote down that I said I would take. This is how I wrote it. Quarterbacks in the SEC that I would take over Arch Manning through 3 games. Garrett Nussmeier, Joey Aguilar, Ty Simpson, Bo Prabula at Missouri, John Mateer, and Lenora Sellers, who got banged up yesterday, didn't get to finish the game against Vandy. I think all 7 would have this Texas team 2-1 right now, and would have given the team an equal or better chance to beat Ohio State in week 1, based on what we've seen from those players through the first 3 weeks. And I think if you had Ty Simpson, I think if you had Nussmeier, probably Aguilar, you beat Ohio State.
You're forgetting one player that I think that would have helped them beat Ohio State, who's not anywhere near as talented, but Diego Pavia would have had the stones, the cojones to go to the horseshoe and not play scared at all.
He would have ran right up Caleb Downs' throat.
He wouldn't have cared. Now he might have lost the game because he's not as talented as the quarterbacks you've mentioned, but I mean that guy would have went in there with a pant full of big balls and ready to show him off, Stan Marsh style. But I think that's an alarming list. This is something 3 weeks ago would we have taken anyone maybe other than Nussmeier, maybe Sellers over Arch.
You probably take Nussmeier if you probably take Nussmeier just because it's I mean,
And the experience. I mean, he's been in college now. This is his fifth season
and
in
then
college. Like we've known, he's been around.
the Sellers thing, I don't know if you do it. I think it's the allure.
I wouldn't have. They were both projectable. They were both like
Exactly.
guys you were projecting. So I wouldn't have taken him over Arch.
Exactly.
I may have taken Mateer, but you know how I felt about Mateer even 3 weeks ago. You know how high I've been on John Mateer since we started our stage 1 scouting over the summer. So maybe I would have taken him just because I know the polish. He's been around, and that does mean a lot. I mean, we're seeing it again right now, just 3 weeks in. The maturation process of the quarterback has become paramount for these college quarterbacks, these college programs, and how we, win in that level, then win at the next level. It's just becoming more and more important.
And I had John Mateer QB3 coming out of the summer, so I'm on you with the belief in John Mateer, but I still don't know if I would have taken him in a situation where he transfers in like he did in that same spot into Texas, blah, 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 blah. I still don't know if I take him in that spot to beat an Ohio State, but I get what your process is, and I also get it as a prospect in Mateer. Mateer, like you said, we weren't surprised or shocked by it. The first 3 weeks of the season, he's been pretty damn good, but he has regressed every single week in his completion percentage conversation from 81% down to 58%. Has had a pick in every game, has been sacked in every game, but they have continued to walk the dog at Temple. Oklahoma this next week, I think plays I thought they had a good matchup coming up. Auburn, that's what it is. Yeah, they're at home against Auburn and Jackson Arnold, and Oklahoma's probably going to be 10th or 11th in the country. Yeah. It looks like that Texas game with Oklahoma is going to come, as long as Texas gets through Florida and Oklahoma gets to Auburn, it's going to be like a 9-10 matchup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks about it. It looks all right. And I'd say the funny thing about Mateer and Arch, where their Venn diagrams meet, is they need to get him to stop being too much of a cowboy. John Mateer, I think he's starting to get too much confidence, whereas Arch seems to keep turtling in and losing confidence. They kind of meet in the middle, and I think both of them will have a great showdown. Now, where I want to take the conversation is the second biggest topic in terms of what we thought we knew 3 weeks ago, as opposed to what we know now after the third week of the college football season, is the Clemson Tigers, because they are 1-2, but they were just a coin flip away from being 0-3. Their week 2 matchup was not all that. They almost lost that game to who the heck did they play? It was a bad matchup.
Troy.
That's right. They were down 16-0, 17-3. It was bad. They ended up coming out on top. But yesterday, fighting again to Georgia Tech. And now Georgia Tech comes away with the win, 24-21. Cade Klubnik, 1-2. Dabo Sweeney, 1-2. This was a team, Cody, that we all in the college football industry, all kind of recognize having potentially 5 first-round picks, 4, maybe 3 of them being top 10 players, and now they're 1-2. So where do you want to take this conversation? Because at the end of the day, I just don't know where to start on a team that's underperforming to this level.
I don't know. I don't think we've seen any growth in Cade Klubnik.
It felt like Cade, now looking 3 weeks in, again, anything can change. We have a show to do today, so we're going to do our show. Cade Klubnik's playing like he already was the first overall pick. Like he already got drafted. He's just playing out the season. Like he already knows he's good. Like, he's playing like he's already won. Like he passed the finish line. The reports coming out of the summer camp, the fall camp, and the spring camp, all that stuff, was how dialed he looked. He's looked anything but dialed so far this season. Cade Klubnik now on the season, 3 games in a row, not a single game over 250 passing yards. has had two touchdowns one time. Another guy just like Arch, 3 interceptions, one each of the games. It just feels like to me. I don't know what it feels like to me. I will give him this though. He has some of the worst, compliments on his offensive side of the ball, probably amongst the top 15, top 12 players. I mean,
He's
no
got
running
receiving
back of
talent.
consequence. Well, he's got. I don't know. Does he? I mean, Antonio Williams has been out, and Brian Wesco had a good game yesterday. But I mean, does he have the talent around him at all? Like,
Wesco and
who's
DJ
his
Moore are good. They're
ballers?
just young. The thing with Antonio Williams is I think the Antonio Williams factor is definitely big in just comfortability for Klubnik. But the
Right,
running
right.
back sucks. I know he had
Yeah,
112 yards yesterday, but Adam Randall's not a running back. He's a receiver. And the offensive line stinks.
yeah. The
So
offensive
I
line has been
get
bad.
what you're saying.
No,
But
Wesco, I want to take that back. Wesco has been performing well. He's, a blue chipper. I can't take that away from the kid who's performing. He's done everything that he can. It just seems like if you only have one weapon, he's got to be a damn good weapon because it just becomes so much easier for defenses to stop one guy.
that's the Arizona State thing.
That's right.
It's I got a buddy that's an Arizona State fan, and I was just talking to him like a couple days ago about Arizona State and where they sit, and the loss against Mississippi State last week, and they had played Texas State last night, and he's like, the problem we've always had is just depth. And I said, well, who's up next after Jordan Tyson? And he goes, nobody. He goes, Jordan Tyson's like a once in a decade player for us at wide receiver.
Yeah.
He's like, the last one was like N'Keal Harry and Brendan Ayuk. Like we rarely get dudes like this. And I said, well, that's the problem. I said, like in the NIL area, you have to have these dudes on deck or you're in trouble. Like Riley Brown looked good yesterday, but anyway, the point is, like, it's the same thought process for Clemson as Arizona State's dealing with this year. They're struggling. They're not playing great. Again, they won yesterday against Texas State, and Sam Levitt grew yesterday. He needed a bounce back, and he got it. Klubnik has needed a bounce back, and he hasn't gotten it.
Mm-hmm.
And I sit here and I look at these notes that I had from the summer scouting, and some of the bio stuff is like 63% passing, 63% passing, started a shit ton of games, 2-time ACC title game MVP, 3-time high school state champion, first player since Kyler Murray in high school to go undefeated back-to-back seasons in high school. He's a winner. He does this. 28 starts coming into the season. He's now at 31. 40 games played. 40 games played. 31 starts in college. And he still is resorting to, first read concepts, the lack of like autonomy, it feels like, taking chances you don't need to take. And can I show you my comp on this write-up? This write-up was done in July.
Okay.
For those in the YouTube audience, for those in the podcast audience,
get to YouTube and check it out. Quinn Ewers plus.
Quinn Ewers was a 7th round pick.
That's right. So he's a 5th round pick.
I don't know about that, but I don't know. I don't think you're.
Listen, the QB landscape is completely turned over. I did a show over at Player Profile Blue Chips, and the last week's episode was directly talking. It kind of piggybacked off of this show last week where we were just talking about kind of the QBs and what do we think and what's kind of changing and who's taking advantage and who's not. And I kind of jumped all over that. And we thought for sure it was Garrett
Gustmeyer. I like
Gustmeyer. I can't believe Nussmeyer. I don't know why I said Gustmeyer. Maybe I'll call him Gustmeyer. So Gustmeyer, Klubnik, Sellers, Aller. That seemed to be like the consensus first rounder type of players at that position. Do any of them become first rounders? Maybe Nussmeyer, because Nussmeyer hasn't done anything to lose his draft stock, but he hasn't done anything to be like, yo, Nussmeyer's the man. Whereas Mateer has, and other players have. Other players have seized the day, seized the opportunity, and at this point, I don't know. Maybe this is a Kenny Pickett year. We get one guy in the first round.
Feels like Nussmeyer's the guy right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's a guy, like I said, he hasn't done anything to hurt his draft stock, to hurt his team's chances. He just hasn't come out and lit it up in a way that you're like, yo, this dude is the consensus 101. I mean, if you look at his stats, super mediocre. 232, 1-0. 237, 1-1, 220, 1-1. Completions percentages over the course of the season, 73.7, awesome. 63.4, all right. Last night against Florida, 55.6, not good. So again, it just feels like, is the number one quarterback just going to be a game manager? Yeah, maybe. Might be.
In 3 games, so they've played Clemson, Florida, and who did they play 2 weeks ago? Who did they play?
LSU, not this
La
past game, the
Tech?
one before.
La Tech? Yeah.
La Tech, yeah, you're correct. Yep.
60 total points scored for LSU in those 3 games. Everybody saw Brian Kelly blow up last night on his press conference and get all pissy and stuff. But 60 total points in 3 weeks. Again, you played Clemson. Sure, it's a good defense, but it doesn't look like any elite defense like we once thought it was. Florida's good, not great. La Tech, you should have dropped the 40 burger on. And then you got Fernando Mendoza over here, who just puts up 73 on Indiana State yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
19
Didn't even play the whole
20,
game.
95% passing, 5 touchdowns, no picks. This guy, week 1 against Old Dominion, his first game with Indiana, they win. Again, he hasn't played anybody this year. Old Dominion, Kennesaw, right. Indiana State. This is the Indiana course of this was their plan. Their plan was to play nobody. They made it. Signetti said it. He's like, "You line them up. We'll play good nobodies. We'll take the undefeated record." And we've seen Mendoza get better week after week after week. His passer rating went from 110 to 207 to 291 yesterday. Again, they scored more points. 13 more points yesterday than Nussmeier scored on the season for LSU. Passing 193, 245, 270. Passing touchdowns 0, 4, 5. So he's got 9 passing touchdowns on the season so far. And Mendoza, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Mendoza's 6'5", 225. I'm not the biggest Mendoza fan, but in a class where you start to bring up the word Kenny Pickett, and some people that know Garrett Nussmeier on the back end, they know and they consider his brain to be of the elite nature. Like,
yep. Yeah,
we've heard the Andrew Luck comparison mentally for Garrett Nussmeier already. I'm not ready to say he's anywhere near that as a quarterback from a consistent standpoint, because we didn't see the consistency last year. I don't think we've seen the consistency yet this year. But once you get past that, Nussmeier, we talk about Klubnik, we talk about Arch. It's like that next group of dudes that we really didn't know a ton about, or they had no expectation. It's the Fernando Mendozas, the Carson Becks. Thought Dante Moore had another good game yesterday. He had a bad pick.
Yeah, he did, but he had a good game.
But these are all 3 dudes that are 6'4", 6'5", prototypical 215, 225, growing, maturing, and getting better week after week after week. And all of a sudden, those top 3 dogs, and I know we like Mateer and like Sellers. Sellers was banged up yesterday. I'm not going to really comment on Sellers' loss to Vandy because he got hurt, and that happens. South Carolina looked like shit. But from a Klubnik, Nussmeier, Arch perspective, those are the 3 hottest names. To names that have not been discussed in nearly enough, probably, in my opinion. Mendoza, Beck, and Moore. Do you have a favorite of those 3? Do you have a thought on those 3?
I think my favorite is Moore because I think I think the ceiling is higher because I think he's just younger, better prospect throughout. But I think if I was an NFL team in those 3 guys, Mateer, who you said it was Moore,
Mendoza,
Beck, and Mendoza, not Mateer. Okay, so if I was an NFL guy, I think Beck would be atop my list because I think we get a good floor, and I still think there's enough of a ceiling to be productive in the NFL. And then, but my favorite is Dante Moore because I think there's just more to be tapped into in terms of the prospect. Mendoza to me just feels like, I just feel like he's just he's good, not great. I feel like, his career path looks more and more like a, 3rd round pick that comes in due to injury and he plays okay. And he gives you a little bit. But I don't know, maybe he does have more left in the tank because the games to me, the numbers have been impressive. But when I watch it, it's like, yeah, he just looks like a guy beating up on a worse team with a good, Indiana's built well. Their program built well. It's built from the ground up. It's built, focuses on the things that help quarterbacks a lot. And, he's taking advantage. So I don't know if I particularly love Mendoza, but again, like your point, I think it has to be stated again because it's very important. The growth, the development, we're seeing it from Mendoza. We're not seeing it from others.
You know what my favorite thing? I watched this Oregon Northwestern game throughout, and they got, I mean, talk about talent around him. I love this offensive line at Oregon. This team,
Huge,
like, they're ranked right now. What are they, third or fourth?
They're fourth right now. Yep.
And first off, timeout. I learned yesterday, Maddie, that there is not one, but there's two special teamers in the Big Ten with the same name. And that name is Atticus.
Oh.
So the kicker for, or this is just a bizarre thought here.
Okay.
I had it yesterday and I was like, what
Talk
in
to
the
me.
hell? So the kicker for Oregon, his name is Atticus Sappington.
Yeah. I'm seeing it from Portland. Okay.
Yeah. He had a couple of good kicks yesterday. Then there's also an Atticus Bertrams, who's the punter for Wisconsin.
Okay.
There's two Atticuses in the Big Ten on the special teams units. Thought that needed to be said. I thought about this yesterday and I was like, it kind of put me in one of those like whirlwinds of like, is there somebody named Atticus that, like, what happened 25 years ago? Was there what was the show that came out that had Atticus? What was the?
No, I don't think it's Atticus. I think it's a different.
I don't
term.
watch
think
Harry
it's a
Potter
name.
and Star Wars, but I feel like that's like a Star Wars name.
I don't. Here's the thing. I think it's like a ritzy thing because look at the names: Bertrams, Sappington. They seem like
English.
No, just yeah. Well, he's from New Zealand.
Oh.
Bertrams is from New Zealand, and I will say Atticus Bertrams is a unit. 6'3", 237. This kid is a monster. Holy shit. But yeah, I don't know what the Atticus comes from. Maybe we'll have to throw that into a little AI, a little chat GPT later and see what could derive two Atticuses at the same time.
Something. I don't know. Some show had to have some like hot dude that was named Atticus. I don't know. I'm so confused about it. Anyways, not of my worry, but I just thought that I had to bring that up. So here's the thing with Moore, Dante Moore. Redshirt sophomore at Oregon. Again, we talked about this last week a little bit. I'm not going to dive too deep into Moore. We talked about him a lot last week.
Yeah, we did.
But he is draft eligible. And the thought process is that he'll go back unless I think this is a championship level football team right now. This defense is hitting hard. And they played, again, two really bad Power 4 teams, but Power 4 teams beat the dog living nuts out of Oklahoma State at home. And then they go to Northwestern on that portable field right on the lake, and they pretty much beat Northwestern, like, physically. Mm-hmm. And Northwestern fought back. That's a tough team, but they fought back. They just didn't have enough talent to do anything. The 34-14 doesn't really do the score much justice. Northwestern scored those 14 points in the last 6 minutes of the game. It was 34 nugget with 11 minutes to go. But the thing about Dante Moore is the competency level, which is what we're entirely missing from an Arch Manning right now. What we're entirely missing from a Cade Klubnik right now is the efficiency and the competency. And again, having talent around you helps, but he's playing above competency. And when you're doing that in the first 3 weeks of the season against low end to medium low end talent like Montana State, Oklahoma State, Northwestern, it allows you to grow, which we're talking about growth on this show, right? And guys getting better and guys that have gotten worse in the first 2 weeks, things we've learned. Dante Moore, 78%, 76%, 80%. Throw the ball 23 times, 21 times, 20 times. The yards are the yards, right? He hit 266 against Oklahoma State, whatever. 3 touchdowns, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. He's added, a couple yards on the ground, not much, no rushing touchdowns or anything. But he's playing complementary football. And when you do that with weaponry around you and you start to get into the season, that's when you start to have the big games, the 5-touchdown game, the 350-yard game. And that's when people point at Jaden Daniels and they go, Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas made Jaden Daniels. Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson made Joe Burrow. And those conversations happen because a quarterback plays so competently that he eventually elevates into a stance where he's crushing. Yeah, and with the weaponry they have, imagine if they had Evan freaking Stewart right now. DeCorian Moore is freaking awesome.
He is good. Right? Yes, he is.
He's been very impressive. Tight end is freaking awesome. Both of these running backs for Oregon right now. Well, first off, Jaden Lamar is good. Jay Harris is good. De'Ara Hill, that kid is a freaking baller. That's a freshman.
Yeah.
That kid's a stud. That he took the one carry 66 yards up the sideline, and he was shot out of a cannon.
Yeah.
And this is an
Oh,
offensive
yeah. Yep.
line. They got a defense. Oregon, it's not like a sleepy pick. And also, who was the running back we were talking about for Oregon starting the season?
Malachi Hughes.
Mekhi Hughes.
Yeah.
Who's done nothing.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. To the point where I've had to now on multiple occasions this year. Remember this: 3 games, multiple times this I've had to go. Did he get hurt? He didn't. He just ain't playing.
He just, I mean, I don't know. I don't get it. But anyway, the point is more so this, that I'm entirely impressed with Dante Moore. I'm going to continue to bring Dante Moore's name up every single show that he has a good game because I think he deserves it. They have Oregon State this next week. So they got the Civil War. And then the next week they go to Penn State.
That's the one, baby.
To Penn State, 7 p.m., NBC. That's going to be 2 versus 3, 2 versus 4, whatever. Whiteout. Dante Moore against a quarterback we haven't even talked about.
Right. And, there's an expression for some positions, offensive linemen. If you haven't talked about them, it's a good thing. But, brother, quarterback ain't one of them. And we have not said anything about Drew Aller. And I do not believe that is a good thing at all. Because coming into the year, Drew Aller was supposed to be a potential first-round pick. Drew Aller was supposed to be a guy that was going to take this team over the hump. And now 3 weeks in, he has not thrown for more than 220 yards in a game. He had 4 touchdowns on the season. He's had clean slates, but he's playing conservative, and that's been the biggest knock on a Drew Aller. And then you look at the completion percentage. Yeah, Nevada, 85%, obviously nice. After that, 58%, 55%. We're seeing a downward spiral. Yeah,
against Villanova.
Who didn't have a football team 3 years ago. Now we look at Penn State's schedule. They have UCLA, a cupcake. Oh, actually, no, they have a bye week. They actually are off this week while Oregon gets the Civil War. Drew Aller better spend this week. I don't know, hype himself up, do something, because, man, this guy's looking like the definition of a third-round pick. This guy's looking like the Penn State quarterbacks that have come before him, if you know what I mean.
I want to see what the total. I would bet right now the opening line is going to be like, I mean, I would put it at 8.5 in favor of Oregon. It's not going to be. It's probably going to be Penn State being favored here. Let me look. Let me pull up FanDuel quick. See if they got something on this game yet.
We might be a little early because there is, you have to worry about the Civil War for Oregon.
Yeah, but sometimes they give us futures. So 3.5. 50.5 total. Oregon minus 3.5 in Happy Valley at night. And again, Penn State's ranked higher.
Yeah, but they'll be idle. They might do some wonky stuff where they move Oregon up, maybe even this week above LSU based on the 10-point win versus the drudging, just to make it look better. But I think no question about it, Oregon's a top. They're a playoff team, and not just a playoff team, but a team that is a top 3-4 team in the nation, a team that will be fighting for a national championship. Especially this year, now that they're not going to have to go and play Ohio State in a neutral site in the first time that they played the playoffs.
All right, Maddie. We'll be back next week. Give us one thing that you're looking like. Just give us one thought of something you want to see in the next week before we talk next time. Obviously, we have Auburn, Oklahoma, Mateer, and Jackson Arnold. We got the Michigan-Nebraska game, little Dylan Raiola action against Underwood. We also got the Battle of Columbia, Bo Prabula. Hopefully, we get a healthy Lenora Sellers. Next week, we also have Lagway. I think that's where game day is going to be, is Lagway at Carson Beck. The Battle of the Midland. I don't even know. This is probably a better title for that. But Luke Altmaier and Fernando Mendoza, Illinois, Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
Like, give us one thing where you think a week from now we're going to come back and be talking about it.
You kind of stole it from me. It was going to be the Battle of the Midwest, the Battle of the flyover states, Illinois versus Indiana, where I think if both of the quarterbacks are on an upward trajectory. Both of the quarterbacks have put themselves in the conversation for quarterbacks we need to know, even for the next level. Luke Altmaier, Fernando Mendoza. If one or both come out looking like professional quarterbacks, they're going to have to be in the forefront of our minds when we're starting to talk about guys sneaking into the first round for quarterbacks. Because, again, the door's been left ajar. What I would like to see is one of these damn quarterbacks figure it out. I want to see Arch Manning have a big game against Sam Houston State. I don't care if it's Sam Houston State. I want to see some of these guys that we thought 3 weeks ago were going to be the guys, be the guys. That's what I want to see. But what I'm looking forward to see is that battle of Indiana and Illinois, a game that was circled on the calendar. You know, Joel Klatt talked about it extensively over the summer. This is going to be a fun game, a good game, a kind of like a bizarro world game because we're not used to Indiana, Illinois being a battle of top 15 teams. Illinois is going to be a top 10 team after taking care of business this week. Indiana, they're probably, where do you have them probably pegged for next week after a win this week? A big, big, big win. They're going to look like they probably.
They beat Illinois?
Do they? No, I'm saying going into next week, top 20. They're 22 right now. There was a couple losses. Like, do they jump Tennessee? I don't know, but it's gonna be a battle of top 20 teams. It's gonna be very exciting. If
USF dropped,
USF's gonna drop, of course. Tennessee's gonna drop.
Tennessee
Notre Dame's gonna
won't
drop
past Indiana.
Clemson, no, probably not. Clemson will. Notre Dame will. Right?
South Carolina
winless on the season. South Carolina, yeah. So we're gonna see probably a battle of top 15 teams, and I think one of these teams are gonna make a huge statement in terms of what to expect in the playoffs because we know Ohio State will be there from the Big Ten. We know Oregon will be there from the Big Ten. We believe Penn State will be there, but there's still like that fourth team. Is it going to be Indiana like it was last year? Is it going to be Illinois, who's been better this year? I think that's like a low-key big game with good quarterbacks, good, competent quarterbacks.
There it is. All right. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. Click that like button. Click subscribe. Go follow Maddie at MattyQM on X and listen to which one you got up this week? Futurecast?
Futurecast will be dropping. Then, of course, every single Wednesday we have the game plan Wednesday nights on Player Profile, and then the walkthrough, the show you and I created last year on Thursday nights at South Harmon Fantasy on YouTube.
There it is. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.